Welcome to iCarly.
Boom. You're listening to Enhance, the podcast dedicated to highlighting real stories told by real people.
Hello, Enhance listeners. Thank you so much for tuning back into another amazing, awesome, positively fantastic episode of Enhance. And today you've got both me and the one and only Gabby on the show.
Yeah.
So today, for our icebreaker, we're gonna play, Gabby, an extreme game of Would You Rather. And I say extreme, it's really not. We're just gonna I know what I'm gonna ask you. Okay? So I want you to ask me something as equally as just very hard to choose between. Ultimatum. Very Two of Swords tarot card moment, if you know what I mean. And so, whenever you're ready, I'll ask you yours.
I mean, you go off. I'm going to have to think about what I'm going to ask you. But yes, I will answer yours now.
Yeah. Total disclaimer, this is not a original. I heard this somewhere. Cannot remember where I heard it from. But whenever I heard it, I was like, this is an amazing Would You Rather. And I'm going to use this forever. So, now, just, I guess, trigger warning, because this Would You Rather does have some, violence in it.
What? Where are we going, Sam?
If you do not like morbidity, you may want to skip ahead a little bit. I may be being too dramatic, because really all it is the word kill is in there. But still, if that's not your thing, skip ahead a little bit. But anyways, so, Gabby,
yeah.
I want you to imagine your best friend. The absolute best friend of your life, okay? This person is your number one. I know that you're looking at them right now, but just pretend I'm a different person. I'm just kidding. But this person is your number one. Y'all be been friends for a long ass time, or it's probably Natalie. Is it Natalie?
Correct.
Yeah. That's a good choice.
She's currently asleep because she worked last night. So.
Oh yeah, because you guys live together now. Oh yeah, that's an announcement for Gabby. Gabby moved.
Woo.
She and her bestie live together.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now poor Natalie being the
victim of this question.
Now. Yeah. All right. So my question to you is, Gabby, for your best friend in the entire world, would you rather murder your best friend and get away with it and no one ever know it was you, or be framed for murder of your best friend and never be able to prove you didn't do it?
Holy moly, I don't even know. Oh shoot. I don't want to hurt her. This is so hard. Wait, so first off, why did you think this was the best one? Second of all, where did you hear it from? How did you...
I told you, I don't know. It was over a year ago. I think I read it somewhere and I was like, whoa. All right.
I probably...
This is really telling about something.
I feel like I'd rather be blamed for her death rather than actually do it. I don't think I could ever do it. I don't think I have the heart or the soul to even think about that.
Yeah.
I don't even want to dissect if I would... No. Let me rephrase how I was trying to say that. I would never want to know that I was the one that killed her. I would have to say that I would rather be blamed for her death, because I'm trying to think what the situation would be. If she, I guess, I don't know, if it was a car accident or something. I don't know. There's so many ways you could die.
Nah, I think the question is, if you murdered your friend, that's intentional death, murder.
But I would never do that. I would rather get blamed. Final answer. Yeah.
Yeah, final. That's a good answer. I hear you. Also, if you killed them and got away with it, then their ghost may come back and be like, fuck you, bitch. So.
I mean, facts. That... She'd be like... Yeah. She'd all of a sudden whisper in my ear, do you remember that time that you did that to me? I'd be like, girl, sit down. Be helpful.
Get back. What now?
No.
I did what I had to do.
I'd rather just not do that. That would be so awful. My God.
You know, I think for me, I'm not even going to answer it just because you have one that you have to ask me. But I will say for me also, it depends on if I'm having to choose in the moment. Like my best friend is aware that I'm having to make this decision. Because if it was me and I was the best friend, I think I would, which, I mean, if that was because I was going to be murdered no matter what, right? So I think I would rather my best friend just kill me and get away with it. Like if I'm going to be murdered and they're either going to be framed for my murder or they're going to kill me and then get away with it and never find out, I'd rather them just go ahead and kill me and be like, all right, I know you'll do it lovingly. At least I'm with someone that I care about as I die. Like
I mean,
if I'm going to
that's a
die
good
either
answer
way.
too. I just couldn't be the one. Like I was thinking about, like
Yeah.
literally, I'm thinking about it. Like, LOL. Like how the hell? Like I wouldn't be able to kill her. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
Like even if it was like life or death situation, she would have to kill me before I killed her. There's no way. Which is
Yeah.
actually so hilarious because she sent me this TikTok the other day and it was the cutest thing. And it literally was like, it's like real friend love when they think about you unconditionally as much as you think about them. It was like the cutest thing ever.
Aww.
And then I'm over here being like, I mean, yeah, she could kill me, but like I couldn't kill her, which is 100% true.
Yeah.
It's just so contradicting.
Definitely get it.
But yeah.
Goodness.
Okay, so for you, I don't know. I feel like always the hard one for me is thinking, would you rather be deaf or blind?
Oh, deaf.
See, I disagree. I'd rather be blind.
Well, see, keep in mind, you're asking someone who is partially deaf if they'd rather be deaf or
I mean, also, but yeah, that's true. But, like, here's the thing. I'd rather be blind. Only for the fact that, like, if I'm deaf, I can still, like, have a good conversation and I'm not, like, alone in my brain. Because I hate being alone in my brain sometimes.
You mean blind?
Huh?
You mean blind? Like if you're blind? You said if I'm deaf, I can still have a good conversation.
Yes, so sorry.
You mean if you were blind?
Sorry, my brain fog is so real today.
You're good.
Yeah, no, so if I was...
It's an overcasty day here. I don't know how it is in St. Louis, but it's overcasty here, so...
It's, like, sunny-ish, but it's been kind of... It's been weird. Like, it was, like, 70 yesterday, and then, like, the day before it was, like, 40.
Yeah.
I was like, what? No.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just been in the 70s here, but I know the overcasty days can cause brain fog, but it's not overcasty where you are, so...
I'm just depressed. But anyway, so yeah, what would you rather be? And explain your reason.
I said deaf. Well, because the thing is with, like... So, for those of... I think we've talked about this. I don't know. I feel like... So, whenever I was in high school, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which, if you don't know what that is, that's an autoimmune disease. And I did talk about this in the opioid episode 3 with Chase. But either way, I'll re-go through it. So I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis. It's just basically your immune system sees your joints. So like the things that help you bend and move. So it sees them as foreign objects and it attacks them. And it causes like deformity and like degradation. Is that that's a sex thing.
I mean, Sam, what are you doing, brother?
It causes your joints to degrade, I guess.
There it is. Yep, there it is.
Yeah. Anyway, so it attacks your joints and causes them to degrade and break down. And so they fought it really aggressively when I was a kid. And it's inactive now that I'm an adult, which is cool. But a lot of my health issues, like, that I, like, struggled with in adulthood was from the medication they were on, because they put you on a medication called methotrexate, which is like a steroid, but it's something that it treats a lot of different stuff. But it's the main things that it treats is rheumatoid arthritis and leukemia. And so basically it's just an suppressant drug. And so whenever I was on it, I always had I have always had problems with my ears. So it was during the summer, and I got just a normal ear infection in one of my ears. But I don't know what happened, but I mean, I'm assuming it's because my immune system was low. And it just, like, went haywire. Like, it went crazy. It spread from my left ear over to my right ear. It was, like, in my jaw. My face was swollen. And I was having, like, severe migraines. I was bleeding from my gums and my nose all the time. Like, it would just be randomly. And I just felt terrible. I was weak all the time. I was really tired. And I was going to doctor's appointment after doctor's appointment, and my doctor at the time, because I was on Medicaid at this point in my life, because growing up poor, the doctor that I was seeing was like one of the only doctors in my hometown that took Medicaid at the time. And he was a quack. He was not great. Like, he was, everybody knew that he was one of the worst doctors you could go to. And he basically just like dicked me around that entire summer, not knowing what was wrong, prescribing me bullshit medication, taking me off methotrexate, putting me back on, like, just literally going around. And then finally one day, after, even though we had told him several times that like it started in my ears, he finally checked my ears and was like, oh, and he said that I had some type of infection, and it started with an M. Can't remember what it was. But, and see, the thing is, like, my first thought is like meningitis, because that does cause like deafness. But this was not like the same. I don't think it was the same type. It could have been, but like, I remember it started with an M. And so anyway, so he put me on these really strong antibiotics. And so whenever he did it, the infection left very, very quickly. But after that, like, it just, I mean, like, my hearing just was basically, it was gone in my left ear, and I could barely hear anything in my right ear. And then I slowly but surely, like, over time, have gained most of my hearing back, and now I have like a good bit of my hearing. I only have like very small amounts of hearing loss. But I went to another doctor because I got new insurance shortly after that. So I went to a different doctor and was just like, yo, my hearing is like not great. And he was like, yeah, because you had an infection for a very long time that went untreated in your ears, you're going to have like long-term damage. And I was like, oh, great. Okay, cool. And so, but that infection like messed up my liver, my thyroid, like it just went crazy. And so I'm all the way better now for the most part, and my hearing is very good compared to what it was. But yeah, so I definitely prefer to be deaf, because even whenever I was in college, because of like my experience, I was like, I want to, because I've had the what's that scholarship called? The one, like, the service scholarship. You remember what it was, where you like did community service and got like money put towards your tuition?
Oh, the Foley Center?
Yeah, was it the Foley Center?
I think it was.
Yeah,
Foley
so
Center Service Scholarship.
yep, that was it. I had that scholarship, and so whenever I got ready to choose my community service, I asked the person in charge of the program if they had any like deaf schools I could go to, or like hard of hearing schools that I could go volunteer at. And so I went to it was this little school in Mobile called the Regional School for the Deaf and Blind, and it had like toddler age up to like middle schooler age, and they were all like deaf and blind students, or students that could not, it wasn't just like deaf or blind. They also had like students that had like some type of disorder where they could never learn to speak. They were basically mute. They could hear, but they were mute, so they had to learn like how to communicate with people using like other way, you know. So it's just really cool. And that was one of the things that they taught us, was that basically when you are deaf, that your senses are geared toward being more connected to your environment. So how you get outside of your head and things like that is that you have a really good relationship with your environment. Where being blind, you're more reliant on people, and so it inhibits your relationship with your environment, but it makes your relationship with people a lot stronger. So it's like you kind of like get a stronger sense of one or the other, depending on if you're deaf or blind. But that was really cool, because that's where I learned sign language. And well, I mean, I had already like kind of started learning a little bit before that, just because I wanted to. But that there is where I learned like proper sentence structure for sign language, which I'm still terrible at. But yeah, because I'm not going to get too much into that. But basically, we have like spoken English and like ASL have completely different sentence structures, and it's because the French are who brought sign language over to America. So our sentence structures are more like ASL sentence structures are more similar to French sentence structures than American or English. So yeah, but yeah, that's why, because I've already kind of used to it. So and I learned how to read lips whenever yeah. So I can like read lips really, really, really well, and I still have to read lips a lot of times. Like if I'm in a loud place where I can't like I just can't focus on someone's voice, or if like they're talking really low, I have to read their lips. So yeah.
Well, good answer. Good answer.
Thank
Good
you.
answer. It's like Family Feud. Love it.
Family
Steve
Feud.
Harvey.
All right, guys. Well, today, to get into our topic, we are talking about what we talked about in the first episode, where we said eventually we would do an episode about it, and we never did. Um, it's Gabby's experience working at a crisis line.
Woo.
So, just a few disclaimers. We're going to talk about people that are in, like, they're distressed. Gabby's going to talk about like how it affected her mental health. There's going to be some people that, trigger warning, would be experiencing suicidal ideation or some other type of crisis. And so, if this is something that could be potentially triggering for you, please feel free to cut the episode off here. We are not going to push you to listen, but it's just going to be a lot of Gabby's experience on dealing with that and like what that was like for her in her career. So, if you are still here and want to listen, we'll get started. Gabby.
Yeah, that's me. So, I was thinking about how I really wanted to like introduce this topic, especially because I'm the one with the crisis line it experienced her. And I think about kind of how you would, you get the job, you're so excited. It's a new adventure in your life. It's this new experience that you're going to have. It's this new door that you don't know what you're walking into.
Yeah.
And for me, I wasn't super opposed to it at first. I was actually really interested in crisis line. I really was interested in first responder type work, and things like that. And so this was just like a good 2-3 steps in there, And I think about training, and I remember, our trainers telling us like, there's only so much we can teach you how to deal with. You're pretty much like gonna figure out how to experience some of this on your own. And, some of them are going to be the easy calls. So, marriage counseling, like very minor anxiety patients, things like that. But then some of them are going to be a little scary. I mean, that's really what they told us. Like, it's going to be scary, which is so interesting considering that it's still very taboo to be like, oh, you're going to experience patients that have suicidal thoughts or have a very distressing time or watch someone they love get hurt. They won't say it like that. They'll just say you're gonna have those bad people and you're gonna have those great people, and you just gotta have to figure out how to get them to where they need to be. So how this was set up. So I worked for an insurance company. I won't say who they are, but I did work for an insurance company, and how they have their mental health line in general work is that you have intake people that can either help with a simple task or direct you to someone that can help you with a major crisis. And then you have your billing side, you have like the pure physical medical side, you have, all of the other, employee assistance program, which depending on your job may offer to you, which is a great resource, which I'll talk about later. You have like all of these different things, right? But for the mental health line, you get an intake person, and then that person gets to decide if you get to talk to a psychologist on the spot or not.
Okay.
So the mental health line was the crisis line.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like
So you were just funneling it all through.
Correct.
Like, it was all going through you.
Yeah.
That is something cool that with like working on movies, if you work on a studio film, a lot of the bigger studios like Lionsgate, they provide you with a crisis line that you can get in contact with while you're working on the film if you need someone to talk to. And it's really cool because you get it for free with being able to So anyways, I just wanted to say, like, I've worked for several movies where that's what we get is we get a crisis line. So like with our employee advocacy or whatever it was that you said about the employee whatever.
The employee assistance program. So let me break down the employee assistance program, because it is a big step in healing for the crisis line, especially for a basic, like, regular intake type person. And then we'll get more into like how the crisis line stuff works. So the employee assistance program is an awesome program that companies, especially really big companies, can buy for their employees. Depending on what package they buy, they can have certain amount of therapy sessions for free for each employee. Uh, Depending on the insurance, they may also help with a legal line. So if you're having legal issues or identity theft issues, they can deal with that. They help you find a therapist. You can set up a calling. We called it tech, which is just a psychologist ready to talk about more of those intermediate needs. So let's say you lost your job. Still a crisis, but it's not crisis to the point where like your health is in danger unless you say so.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's another line that you could have gotten. And then again, different packages have different things. So even more in-depth legality stuff. You could get pet care. Like there was like 1,012 different things that was offered to you. Also, one of those lines being the crisis line. So, with with that being said, more of the intermediate um, topics would be anxiety, like just start of depression, marriage therapy, couples therapy, stress with identity, stress with work and home balance. So, those are just a few of the many different levels of what would be a basic care need, which weren't the scary calls. But because we do get a lot of people that don't know where to go, and it's 100% fair that people don't know where to go when they are in crisis. Some people, unfortunately, do not think about calling 911, especially if they're in like a physical danger, but they'll call their insurance,
Really?
which is also very interesting. Yes. So like
Whoa.
it's literally like 911, your insurance company, and then like all of the different crisis lines that are available depending on the situation. It's so interesting.
That's
It's
very
mind blowing
interesting.
how many people call an insurance company. But if you think about it, some of those cases have to not only do with mental issues, but also medical issues, like physical medical issues. So, um, my first suicide call, and disclaimer here, if you've already listened up to this point, this is where it's about to get deep, so just bear with us. I will never forget it. I did 3 months of training, and this was like my first month and a half on the phones. And it was like a normal day. I'm taking my normal 40 to 50 calls. This was COVID time, so that's really high, but we did take a lot of calls. Um, and I remember this gentleman getting on the phone and not knowing what to say. First thing we got to do is verify HIPAA. We can't technically speak to you via insurance without you verifying all of your information to make sure that we're talking to the right person. So, that's usually your insurance card number, date of birth, address, first and last name, maybe a phone number, depending on, how many. You're supposed to have 4 out of like the 5 or 6 that they offer you on the screen when you call, but just depends on the company. So we would have to do that, and I could tell in his voice at that point that something it wasn't good. It wasn't all right. Very shaky in his voice. And I just remember being like, okay, sir, is there anything I can do for you? What are we looking for today? Do we need a therapist? Do you want to use your employee assistance program? I'm trying to give all these options. And he just goes, I have it in my hand. And I was like, what do you have in your hand? Which is the most like dumbest, honestly, probably smartest but dumbest question you could ask at that
Therapist.
point.
That's what
Because
I would have been like. Therapist. Okay, I hear you, sir.
right,
Going to a therapist. Like,
right, but because he didn't really describe what he needed, which is the first thing you should do when you're on the phone with your crisis line or insurance company. I didn't know what even the call was going to be about. I had no idea that it had to do with depression, like severe depression. I didn't know, and I knew nothing. And he just goes, click, click. I just, he didn't even say a word. He just cocked this gun. And I immediately knew it was a gun because, like, I have a dad who's very passionate about hunting and he likes to go and, do the deer hunting thing. I know what a gun sounds like. So this guy, I just went, sir. And there's a way in every insurance company, especially if it's that scary, you don't want to put that person on hold ever. So there's a way that I could contact a therapist and pretty much merge them into the line without me having to put someone on hold, because technically there is a line. Okay, obviously this crisis was like top notch compared to other people's calls, unfortunately. And this is really how it goes. You have to, as the intake person, decide, is this more important than other people's problems, or is this person's problems more important? Like it's sadistic. It just does not sit well with my stomach. So I was like, okay, sir, well, how about we talk about this? How about we put it down on the table in front of you and let's talk about
How'd
this.
you know there was a table in front of him?
I don't know. I said table. I didn't care if there was a chair. At that point, you just zone out and you just start talking. And I don't even know. I don't even remember hearing the like setting down noise. I just said, "Hey, what's going on? Tell me what today was like. What made you decide, And he's describing it very detailed. Like, I had a shitty day and this happened, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, keep talking, please, so I can get someone on the phone that is not me. Because I only have a bachelor's in psych.
You're like, I am underqualified for this.
I don't know what to say. Like, there's basic things you can say. Obviously, don't do it, sir. Like, like the stupid, like, nonchalant things that you could say that really do nothing. So I very much just let him talk. And I was like, oh, wow. So how did you get to that? And, oh, with, just like anything that I could pick a question at, I picked a question at. But you also have to think, like, even though this conversation is probably so depressing and numbing, you're still internally freaking out on the other line that you heard a gun cock.
Yeah.
Like 20 minutes before that or whatever it was, right? And thank God there was someone practically available within like the 5-6 minutes I had him talking or whatever it was, or and that therapist, I heard her beep come on in my ear. And I said, sir, I used his name. You never, if you don't know how to say their name, that's okay. But try not to use sir and ma'am all the time when you're talking to someone who is on the verge, because they don't want proper talk at that time. They want to, this is a cry for help. Mm-hmm. Like, they want someone to literally step in and be like, hey, Bob. That's not his name, but just for plain reference here. Hey, Bob, like, I know you're looking for some kind of connection to keep you where you are right now. And, just those little gestures like that make a huge difference. So, and it ended up that I introduced the therapist and I said, hey, Bob, and since we're going with that, hey, Bob, I see that you're going through something and I see and I hear you, but I think the most proper way to do this is to talk to a therapist.
Yeah.
They will handle everything for you. And I really, you go, and I hope you, stay strong during your journey. And then you say your goodbye and you hang up once the therapist starts talking. Because at that point, at that point, it is a doctor to patient relationship issue. You get the heck out of that call, because the more you stay in that call, the more they think you're recording the call, and they get scared and they hang up, and then they do things they're not supposed to.
Sorry, so it was a therapist or was it a psychiatrist?
So we have a lot of therapists, well, and this was at the time, that are able to kind of get them in the right direction. So it was all people, just talk therapist. Now,
Yeah.
we did have a few psychiatrist and nurse. We had a nurse line too that were trained in the mental health field to be able to regulate some kind of quicker medication. But at that point, with that severity, that therapist that therapist's job was to literally immediately get them to inpatient care or a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, it's kind of out of the intake person's hands. It's into the therapist's arms, and they're going to de-escalate even further than what you did, and then make sure they're in a hospital.
Yeah.
But I just remember after that call just being unwell. I literally told my parents about it. I was like, "Hey, I just had this call. It's my first one. I don't know if I can keep doing this."
Yeah.
I literally, from that point, was like, I had this man's life like in my palm, and I didn't like that. I didn't like being responsible for someone's entire life.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Mm-mm.
I know whenever I was in college, I was an RA for a little bit, and this is not the same as being working for a crisis line, and not comparing this whatsoever. But as you were telling the story about like going through training and everything, when we went through like the RA training program, they did this thing called behind closed doors. And it was basically this training session that you did like very soon before students came like back to campus, where you would walk through different dorms and they would have scenarios set up in each room on how to handle certain things. And it was anything from like parties to roommates fighting, and there was one about suicidal ideation. But I'll say that like the way that the training program now, it's the residence life at our college is ran by completely different people now, so I have no idea if it's like this or not anymore. But I know whenever I was there,
Sure.
it was like not they. It was honestly kind of sucky, like how they did it, because they would basically, there was like this bread, because I was dating like a senior RA, quote unquote. It was just like a higher RA position. Like basically, they are the RAs for the RAs. Like they kind of like oversee an area. They're like the student connection between like the students and the area coordinators who were actually like employees of the college. And so I was dating one, but he wasn't like over my area, so that's why it was fine that we were dating. But they like, I don't know if it was just specifically him and his friend group that were RAs or if it was all the RAs, but they were very like gossipy and excluding about this whole process or just in general. And they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, behind closed doors, I know you guys are going to be so stressed about that, blah, blah, blah." And then we would be like, "Well, what is it?" And they wouldn't tell us. And so they like amped up this whole thing. And basically there was just like this high tension in the air going up to it. And then we like found out what it was the day of, and like nobody knew how to react to any of the scenarios, because like they walk you through things like in training, but then once you get there, it's like they just throw you into it. And so, but yeah, the one of the ones that I had to do, because basically you have to do it in front of all the other RAs in your area. So you have to like act out this situation and pretend that the person sitting on the floor isn't a higher up RA, but is like a person like going through whatever it is that they're going through. And I had to do the one for like suicidal ideation, which kind of sucked because I have I've struggled with suicidal ideation for pretty much all my life. So yeah, and when I say all my life, that's a little dramatic, but it also has been, I mean, I think the first time I ever like had a thought was whenever I was 10 years old, and it just like came out of nowhere. And so like just looking at that, I'm like, how, but that was a sucky situation on how they like trained us, but like also how do you prepare for someone for that? Like, you know?
Exactly. You don't. And it comes down to the point of lack of information, I think, and continuing the topic of it being taboo. It's like sex.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like talking about it, but it happens all the time. all the time. And you either learn about the basics from a friend, you learn it from school, you learn it from you like something like super minor, but there's just a lack of information and
Yeah.
everyone doesn't know what to do. And it's I don't want to say that sex and suicide are the same thing, but the fact that they're both very taboo topics that are treated almost the
Mm-hmm.
same.
Oh yeah, I mean that's like there's a lot of things like that like I mean if it's not like a
Yeah.
prim proper straight white like thing topic, then we don't want to like then we don't have discussions about it, but like having discussions about like that's something that basically I remember one of the biggest turning points in like my growth as a human, like whenever I started breaking away from some of the conservative views that I had, like whenever I was a teenager and going into adulthood, was that whenever I was a teenager, the what you always heard was like, if you want racism to stop, well then stop talking about it. And so like basically just like stop giving it attention, which sounds like cool and fine and dandy, but then like whenever I got to college and like started learning about racism, then it was like a no, we need to talk about it because most of y'all don't even know what racism is, and like I didn't. I know, like I mean, exactly. I know that sounds dumb that I didn't. Like the basic thing is like or one race's hate to another, especially if the race that is hating the other is the race in, quote unquote in power. And so, like, that's a basic definition, but there's so much that goes into racism. Like, there's like systematic racism, there's societal racism, there's microaggressive racism, there's like all kinds of like, there's judicial racism, like, there's a lot of,
Yeah.
and like learning all of that, like, I don't know, that was a very big change thing, but I had to talk about it and I had to become comfortable talking about it and I had to find friends who were comfortable in talking about it. And like, you never should make someone else's education or make your education someone else's responsibility. But I did find friends who are people of color who are comfortable answering questions for me when I have them. Like to give an example, this is not on Crisis Line whatsoever, but I feel like it kind of is the same way with like feeling free to ask questions. Like the other day, I asked my friend Morgan, who was on an earlier episode, because I made a comment about her being able to twerk because she was a black girl with a big butt. And then when it came out, I was like, that sounded very like, and I felt, I was like that sounded very generalizing,
Yikes.
And because it wasn't like the question was like, well, do you believe she can twerk? And I'm like, of course I believe she can twerk because I mean she's a but I didn't say because she's a dancer. I said she's a black girl with a big butt. And so I asked her, I was like, was that okay for me to like later? I asked her, I was like, is that okay for me to say? And she was like, I don't see a problem with it. She was like, you were just stating something. She was like, but I do see why you would be afraid that it's a problem. And I could see why other people would see it as a problem because it is like putting race in a place where it just doesn't matter. Like you don't have to say like describe it that or put someone in a stereotype like that. And I feel like that often gets applied to suicidal ideation, that people that are struggling with suicidal ideation, sometimes they're not actively planning to kill themselves, but whenever when they want to open up to somebody, when they want to open up to someone,
it's one bad day.
And everybody, like I know there were several points in my past where I would open up to people like, I've struggled with suicidal ideation for pretty much my whole life, and I went to therapy for it. I had so many people that would be like, oh my god, what? And like they would just treat me like I was a basket case after that. I've had so many friendships ruined because we've talked about before how I've like fit into toxic relationships and everything, and like I have a very codependent like habit like to form codependency, and I have a weird habit to form codependent relationships basically, and it's always like a like weird nurturing or parental like kind of vibe. And anytime I've opened up to people in the past, there have been several points where people would jump and just assume that anytime I was having a bad day, they had to like jump and be my therapist. And I'm like, you don't have like, I'm just having a bad day. Like sometimes I just want a friend to rant to, and I've had so many friendships ruined that way.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I will say this as somebody who has had a lot of very close friends, family, etc., go through very scary places in suicidal ideation and almost pretty much doing it. I think there's a sense of helplessness. I think there's a sense of not feeling heard. There's a sense of continuing to feel isolated and alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally get it. I 100% get it because I feel like I've for sure been in that place, uh, especially through this crisis line journey, even just being on the other side. Because you would think, like, people are like, oh my gosh, you worked on a crisis line. You should be really good at saving people's lives. Like, you save people's lives, Gabby. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I I don't want that power,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to be hyped up that people that want to die want to talk to
Yeah,
me.
that has to be a weird feeling.
And
Yeah.
that sounds really wrong. It sounds really awful because, you do want to talk to those people and you do want to help them. Like, you do care for them. You do so much care for them. But, like, you also have to understand in the end of the day that it is not you.
Yeah.
Even if you've contributed to their stress, it is never you. They needed to make a decision. They needed to feel a certain type of way. They had a lot of things topple on them. It's not normally one thing. It's
Yeah.
it's one problem from this area of life, one problem from this area of life, three problems from this area of life, another problem from this, and then you did this, and then they decided it's just, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you never want to feel like it's you.
Yeah. That's something that whenever you said about the like feeling unheard, that was something that like a lot of people whenever you're younger, they're like whenever I was younger at least, I feel like education about these sort of things has gotten a lot better
I
since
hope
I
so.
was a kid. But whenever I was a kid, it was very much like think about the people that you would be leaving
Yeah,
behind.
and I remember that.
And then it's like you're then yeah, and then you're making someone who is in distress, who's wanting to kill themselves for whatever reason, then feel guilty, which is then going to make them want to kill themselves more. And for me, it was never like oh well, I don't care about them. I don't care about how I leave them. To me, there was like this dissociation, like this disconnectedness. Like I did not feel like I existed in the same world, same space, same atmosphere as those people that I would be leaving behind. So like if you were to say like think about those people that you're leaving behind, to me I'd be like I'd go
Yeah.
unnoticed. I don't even exist, and like I feel so disconnected from the world I live in due to what I'm feeling, due to the depression I'm in, due to the circumstances, due to this really bad blowout in a friendship that has basically left me with no friends. Like one trigger warning because we're going to talk about actual attempts now. So I actually did attempt suicide one time whenever I had graduated. When I graduated high school, it was that summer. It was toward the end of that summer. And I had just basically had a lot of friendships kind of implode because I was no longer in school and I was about to move away. And my senior year, I got outed. And so, which was really, what which was a very confusing situation because I was outed, but I would still find random people that had no idea I was outed. It was weird. Anyways, but basically, a lot of my friends, and when I say friends, I don't mean like my close friends. Like I still had close friends, but a lot of my friends that I would say that were just like social friends. Like I would talk to them and hang out with them whenever we were like at lunch or when we would go to like football games or if we were at parties and things like that. Like they were my social group, right? They stopped talking to me. And a
Yeah.
lot of them that like suspect, there were two people specifically that I'm thinking of that they're straight guys and they were on the football team and everything else. And they suspected that I was gay for a long time. And they kept on telling my friends, they're like, dude, like if he just like would come out, we wouldn't care. Like we're not like, we wouldn't be mean to him because there were two people that was in my like social group. But to me, I was still very much like trying, like choosing to be straight, like my like religion told me. And so, anyways, but so whenever I was outed, even though they both had said that throughout our entire high school existence, they had nothing to do with me. Like people I had been friends with, even like close friends with for so long, just like would not speak to me at school. And I will say that one of the guys that said that about like, oh well, if he would just come out, like we wouldn't care, we wouldn't be mean to him or anything like that. He actually did have my back. He didn't. We weren't social. We weren't because we had always been kind of like rivals and like from junior high school to high school, so he would have been the last person I expected to have my back. But he was actually really good to me, and he was, I don't even, I mean, I guess I'll just say what he was. It doesn't really matter, people know, but he was the quarterback of the football team. And whenever whenever people started talking about it and they started like talking bad about me, he was like, "Y'all leave him alone, stop." And like it was mutual friends of ours that came to me and were like, I just want to let you know, like he's making people shut up, like he's not like, you know. But anyways, that's such a tangent. But it was just a hard situation because it was, you know, my last semester of high school, and I finally just like, I just didn't deny it whenever it came out, like, and people started talking about it and everything. I just like didn't deny it. So tons of people were just like not speaking to me anymore. And I was also like at outs with my family, and I had moved in with a friend of mine. That then there was an issue that she had let another friend move in, and that friend caused a bunch of like bullshit that like they later found that she blamed on me, but then they all later found out, oh no, it actually was her. And so then I had another friendship implode, which honestly was on me. Like I made a shitty decision, and I made the decision to put myself in
Yeah.
the middle of something that I shouldn't have, and then I was dishonest about something. And so when that happened, though, and that had happened months before, so the fact that the repercussions were happening then at such a hard time was just like, yeah. So I ended up trying, and I ended up having to go to the hospital and everything. But during that time, the whole feeling was just that like I had negativity coming at me from so many different places. And I was just trying so hard to like get through the summer, go to college, like leave everything else. And I felt trapped. I felt kind of stuck. And I felt disconnected from the people around me that claimed to love me. You know, like there was something, and like, don't get me wrong, I know that they loved me. But when I say claim to love me, that was the mindset in that moment. It was like they were saying they loved me out of almost like obligation, because the negativity that was coming from them, the like tension that we were in, it just said otherwise, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and that's a hard place to be. And some people deal with it a little bit different than suicide. Some people become really addicted to certain substances. Some people go and just try to forget about it and they end up hurting someone. Some people go to therapy, do it healthy. Some people go get help, whether that's, getting like doing some like more like physical types like sports or something, and then going to see a therapist,
Yeah,
and maybe like, and some people don't eat. Some people eat too much. Some people, so there's never a right answer on how to deal with your mental health, except for making sure that whatever you're doing is in a healthy, safe
absolutely.
environment, to make yourself feel better, and to understand what is happening around you and why it's happening around you. And I'm not saying that everything is caused by you. There's a lot of things that people go through that are just 100% out of their hands, like losing your job, or, you know, losing your job could be kind of a little bit of both. It could be you, it could be the company's direction and what they're doing. It could be, having just someone make up something about you, or someone outing you in your set, like in your case. It's just, that's a lot to deal with. And so I don't think people realize it's too much to deal with until it's too late, depending on what avenue they're going. But just to kind of, because I do want to talk about another story here, but just to kind of like summarize this and think about it. You are not by yourself when you feel like you're by yourself. There are people out there that want to help you. There are people that want you to strive and be better and learn how to take care of yourself correctly. And if you do need those resources, please do not be afraid to reach out to your HR, to, someone that does work in insurance. They know a lot. Trust me, they know too much sometimes. Um, so, reach out to people that you trust that will help you find resources. Look up phone numbers of different hotlines. If you listened to our last episode, last weekend, I did put, a suicide prevention line number on there, and a domestic violence, because that's what that episode was about, crisis line number and resources on there. Please do not hesitate to reach out to those. You know, there's no reason that no one can help you. Someone will be able to help you. So just don't hesitate. Yeah, so my other story that I want to tell about the crisis line, this one is the one that really sticks with me. And for those of you who know me, you'll figure out why. I'm not going to explain in full detail why this bothers me this much, but this call really messed me up. This was about, I would say, a year and a half mark of working in the crisis line. So at this point, I've had a lot of really crazy calls.
You were well seasoned.
Yeah. Yeah. 50 calls.
Yeah.
40 to 50 calls a day is a very hard thing. And if you are still working at my company and you were friends with me, I'm so sorry and I love you and I hope everything has gotten better. COVID was hard. COVID was not a fun time for anyone. So my second call here that I want to talk about has to do with rape and sexual assault. So if you are triggered by that, please, bye. I don't want to see you. As much as I love you, I don't want you to be hurt or be upset. So please, don't listen to this part of the episode. Thank you. But I get on this call. I obviously do the same. Hey, how are you? Let's HIPAA verify you real quick. What is your information? And this woman, is crying already. Just not stable at all. And I was like, okay, so, I do see that you called today. What's going on? What, tell me what's... And she word vomits the entire story. And it was a older woman. Honestly, she's beyond the age of retirement. And for the last 2 years, she was being raped by her boss. And that's the easiest way of explaining it without all of the details that I gotten from it. And, she was talking about how she feels so stuck because if she she was spiraling. She was like, if, I just told HR, but like before that, like I didn't even know if I could do that because what if I lost my job? What if they ganged up on me? What if they didn't believe me? What if, so she's like really just spiraling. And I had a really hard time. I was crying on the phone with her. And, I also would like to say that as in certain calls in crisis line work or first responder work, it's okay to show a little bit of emotion. You don't want to make it about you, obviously, because it's not about you in that moment at all. But you do very much want to... You want to show professionalism. You want to show compassion. You don't want... We want to show this empathy, exactly. We do not want people talking to robots. In the end of the day, in these situations, that's not what you want to do. So, this woman just continues to talk about how, her phones mess up and, like, she's like, what if I lose you if you put me on hold? Like, I won't be able to call back and I won't be able to answer you because what if it's the cops? Because apparently this man was arrested and taken into custody, but he paid his own bail. So, he was like, Roman. And of course, there's a whole ass ambulance as I'm talking about the story. Literally right here by my house.
Bro.
Anyway. Scary. Anyway, so, I'm just listening to her and crying with her. And, I'm trying to show solutions. At this point, this is a crisis call. The moment she said she was stuck and he was in and out of, the
committing
jail.
Sexual assault with her.
Yeah. And apparently multiple times a day. Like, I mean, this girl was just...
Oh my God.
I know. And I think about this call still to this day. And I think about how disgusting people can be.
Yeah.
And I obviously got her to a therapist very efficiently, but I mean, I had to take her from 300 to 0, like real fast, because she was like spiraling / crying / saying things she probably shouldn't have said to me, like that should have been in a police report. Okay. And as insurance companies, we do record every call for those type of purposes if need be. So please Don't
Yeah.
hesitate to reach out if you need records, or talk to your attorney if you need records from somewhere.
Yeah.
But
I know, I won't give any detail because not the time or place, but I know sometimes I've called like 911 or like the police department just so that me making a report could be on the record just in case anything ever happened or something. Like, and I haven't done that a
yeah,
whole lot. I ain't calling them like every 5 minutes to make reports on shit. But there have been instances where I'm like, if something happens and my name gets dropped and I'm asked why didn't I report anything, I can be like, I did. I called on this date, and I always document it too, like somewhere in my phone.
yeah,
Like I'll text myself, take a video. I'm like, this is what happened.
yeah. Legally, from a legal standpoint, I worked at a law firm, so just bear with me. I'm not a lawyer, but the more documentation you have, the better. The more documentation you have, the better. And it's true.
Yeah,
It is 100% true. When people ask me questions, just of like basic, like, should I document? I'm like, yeah, write that, write it down, brother. Like, don't hesitate. You definitely need to write it down. So I think there was a purpose in her calling, but I just think about those details that I will not disclose that information via HIPAA, via anything, but I just think about how gruesome, how scary every day going to work would be, to know
yeah,
to know you're gonna get attacked. And it's just like, I mean, I've seen people having these experiences that, that obviously wasn't my first or last call, um, including those type of details, but I just sit there and think that this older woman,
mm-hmm.
old woman, is still struggling with someone attacking her.
Yeah,
And it blows my mind, because I'm like, wow, like, I don't know. Just the whole thing just like really messed me up. And that day, I had to leave work that day after that call, because I was like uncontrollably like hard sobbing after the call. Like, I teared up with her and
yeah.
cried with her on the call, but like afterwards I lost it.
You worked in person? I thought you worked at home for some reason.
I did work at home. I had to turn
Oh,
off my
you
computer
logged
and
off for the day. Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
it
blame you.
was, and that's another thing I think that made it even harder. And
Yeah,
maybe that's just me, because I'm not a. I mean, I love working from home, but I don't think I could do it full time like I did back when I had this job, because it was a full time work from home
yeah,
thing because of COVID. Um, but I sit there and I was so like, I felt really alone, even though
yeah,
my boss, my team lead, like all of them were very supportive and like, oh my god, like I can't believe you went through that, like just do what you
yeah,
got to do. If you got to leave, you got to leave. That's really hard, blah blah blah. Very supportive.
yeah,
But that physical like person sitting next to you, and you're able to be like, you're not going to believe what I just heard.
yeah.
Like, those little connections are also very, very, very healthy.
Yeah, and there's also like a boundary thing that you're not able to put up when you're working from home. Like you can leave all your stuff at work, you know?
Yeah.
But like when you work from home, if you leave it at work, you're leaving it at home, you know?
Yeah, and that's something I also did kind of struggle with, especially with this high intense like emotional job. I mean, I would literally look at my family and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I got to the point where I just was like, if I break my arm, but I will be able to quit this job and I could do like long-term disability or something. I don't know. I was looking for any excuse to not do it anymore. I did it for almost 2
Yeah.
years.
You are about to need a crisis line. Like
Yeah, like I was like, well, and that's another thing. I didn't feel comfortable calling our crisis line. I won't get into that
mm-hmm.
detail because that's another story for another day type thing, but I just I couldn't do it. I didn't want to call people for help, even though I probably needed a lot of help too, but I ended
Yeah.
up I ended up leaving that position, because my grandma wasn't doing well at my time. My grandpa wasn't doing great at the time. Uh, but I like where I am now, which is really nice. I feel like my mental health has shot up since then.
Yeah.
maybe not in the past month, but like,
You've been going through it recently, but yeah.
yeah. Well, and I think about this last call too a lot. Um, the last one I want to share because some of these are just I can't even describe them correctly. It wouldn't even do them justice because they're so awful. But I think about this one call. I had it was going to be an employee assistance program call, and it was via the legal line. And what was really interesting about it, this poor father, poor guy, makes me still sad to this day. Watched his son get murdered in front of him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I think about the multiple things that he didn't want any mental help. It was offered to him. But this individual got on the phone, did the HIPAA verification, disclosed that information that he watched his son get murdered. He wanted an attorney. Obviously understandable. But he also probably needed like a PTSD therapist, like right there.
Yeah.
To try to minimize those intrusive thoughts and things like that kind of in the moment, which, I did tell him, I will definitely get you to the legal line, and I will, because he went into full detail of how it happened. Again, should have been in the police report, if not in the police report already, like just full-blown details. And I was sitting there and I was just like, okay, well, I'll get you to the legal line and I'll make sure that they know what you're doing. But also, please circle around and call us back if you need to talk.
Yeah.
Circle back to us, because I understand that, like, right now you're in, like, I got to get help for my family, like the rest of my family. I have to make sure our butts are covered legally. There's a lot of things when someone gets murdered that you have to legally go through. So I understood what he was doing. But mentally, that man was not there to do that. And I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, because he is the father of the family, and he very much felt like he had to take on that man role that we stereotype anyway. But he felt like he had to move forward with that and really make sure that he had the legalities all covered. But I will say that made me want to do more advocacy and be more of an advocate for people, which is why I like where I am now, and I'm doing a lot more advocacy in a less crisis form way.
Yeah.
With fundraising, I mean, you're helping people achieve their dreams through school, through a program, through scholarship, through right. So
Yeah.
advocacy is definitely a huge part of my life. This part of advocacy though was hard.
Yeah.
Hard. If you are not great hearing people's like time and time crisis over and over again, do not go into a crisis line. Do not go into that type of field. Like, there's just nothing there for you. Let me tell you. I was so interested that I thought it was for me, because I originally in my life wanted to be a therapist for policemen, because I think part of the problem with just the police world in general, is that we put a lot of blame on these men and women who are trying to protect us, but we don't supply them with any type of real mental health knowledge, aid, schooling. Like, we don't have it really a lot. It's just not great. So that was my original goal. And I thought, if I felt like I was somewhat a part of their experience, I could understand them more, which I 100% do and understand them more, but it definitely wasn't the best way I could have done that,
Yeah. Definitely, I agree that, because I'm very much like Black Lives Matter, like
Correct.
I'm very much,
Me too.
But I do agree that, like, it's like the problem isn't like police officers, the problem is the judicial system.
Yeah.
And there are bad police officers out there, no doubt, 100%.
Correct.
They are putting. I mean, if you just look at the Stanford prison experiment, I mean,
it's
they weren't
so
police
interesting.
officers; those were just like fake guards that the moment they were put in a position where they were the ones like who were meant to help keep peace and like watch over people, they were then became abusive and freaking psychotic, you know? And so like being put in a position like that is very stressful. I think that's been the issue, is that like there isn't a way to decompress that stress. And then there's also like there is some where it's like they're above the law, you know. But
Yeah.
I think one of the first big steps would be like make mental health, like caring for your mental health in the make caring for your mental health in the judicial, oh my gosh, judicial system, make caring for your mental health in the judicial system a
Priority.
like a must. Make it mandatory. Like make it to where like you have to see a therapist regularly, or if you go through a stressful situation, like you do have to go to therapy. I mean, and there are instances where they have to be like cleared mentally after really stressful things, but I think it should be like a regular thing all the time.
Yeah, it needs to be a regular thing, but also I say this for the therapists that do already like mandatory therapy sessions. I think we need to take the word mandatory out of it. I think it just gives a negative tone to wanting to go to therapy. Maybe regulated. Regulated would be a more positive word. Maybe not.
I like that.
I think we need regulated therapy, and I think it needs to be on both sides, that the person doing the therapy wants to do that type of therapy with people, but also, that the officer understands that they should also feel comfortable talking to someone. And if they have to go through 3 or 4 therapists to find it, that's the process. Like you're not going to connect with everybody you talk to. There's people I talk to and I'm like, well, I'm never going to talk to them again, right? So we need to find some kind of regulation of feeling comfortable talking to someone, not being forced to only talk to one person because they're the person of the department that you talk to. That's just so shitty. Like, it's just, if someone was like, hey, Gabby, you have to go talk to this person that you don't get along with, or that you don't like, or that is faking caring about their clients or whatever, why would I go? Yeah. That doesn't give me a great positive outlook on it. So, and I really do strongly believe, in the end of the day, we just need a better way of kind of covering regulating mental health on both sides, especially in the police world. Yeah.
I like that a lot. That's a good.
Yeah, and you know what?
Mandatory sounds like, because who wants to go to a mandatory meeting at work?
No one. No one. Like when I used to work at a shoe store, they'd be like, yeah, Sunday afternoons at this time, everyone has to show up no matter what. It's mandatory. I was like, get out of my face. Like, I don't want to go. But anyway, so that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg of crisis line stuff. And I feel very blessed for the experience, because now, even though I'm not into therapy, I know you guys have, I've fully have told you that I've just never loved therapy, and I've been in and out of it.
But I do remember one episode you were like, maybe I should go to it.
Yeah, I do. And I do have those type of like, those moments where I'm like, maybe I should be in a therapy session right now. If you're having any type of these very negative thoughts, or if you just want to talk to someone, take this as your sign to go do that. Take this as a potential wake-up call, in a sense, before it gets to a point it shouldn't be at. I've explored several options of therapy where it's just straight up texting. My favorite that I've found so far is Talkspace. If that's something you want to utilize, we're not sponsored by them. If you want, you can totally sponsor us, Talkspace. Other ones that are just as good, and all of them have people that I've found that truly care about you getting better and talking it out.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. I mean, I know that I am a huge advocate for therapy. I think that everyone should try it at least a few times if they're going through something. And, it takes time to find the right therapist, just like it takes time to find the right medication for certain things. Like you really have to take your health. You have to treat mental health like health care, and like really take it into your like hands and make it a priority to find the right fit for you. And I mean, I've went to 4 different therapists. And each of them were unique in their own way. Each of them brought something different to the table when it came to being my therapist, like my first therapist, honestly, she was just like a friend. She was a good pal. Like, it made it easy getting into therapy. You know, like she made me comfortable with therapy. Second therapist, she was a personality specialist, like a personality disorder specialist, but also just like she looked at like the personality of each person that came in and saw like what made them them, you know. And she taught me a lot of great behavioral things. She taught me how to
Right.
like grow out of a lot of, you know, behavioral, like toxic behavior, if that makes sense, that was causing me to have problems in my interpersonal relationships. Next therapist was once again more of just like a chatty one. She was more of like a like supportive older sister, if that makes sense. And then my last one, honestly, I think she's been the best fit for me because she is, I still just go randomly call her and stuff and just like, you know, set up appointments just to catch up, because she has been phenomenal at helping me unpack trauma and like seeing how I am today. But I will say too, just to go back to, you know, like kind of to branch off the conversation from earlier, what my big issue is that I just have like really, really big emotions that are very difficult to process.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to make like processing them a priority, which means there are a lot of things that I have to avoid in life to like keep me um from not being able to process those emotions in a healthy way. That makes sense. And so sometimes it's not about like getting better. Sometimes getting better looks like just finding ways to deal with what's happening in the moment, you know, and being able to understand
Correct.
that whatever you're
Right.
going through right now may be difficult, but this is how you're going to handle it, and it's not going to last forever. That's something my second therapist told me that I actually that it's one of two quotes that she told me. One of them I have tattooed on my wrist. But the first quote that she told me is, "This is just a moment." She was like, "Just remember, anytime you get sad, anytime you get like feel a certain way and you're feeling trapped, remind yourself that this is just a moment." And I didn't really understand what it meant at that time, but like as I continued to say it, I finally understood what she was saying. Like, whatever you're dealing with, it will not last forever. It's not going to. Like, as much as it seems like it's going to, it seems like it's the end. Like it's going to be with you until the end, it won't. And if it is something that's like a new disorder, a new something like where you're like, you know, dealing with something that's long term, there are ways to like get out of what the feeling of, oh, I'm trapped. Like there are ways, like you will people are capable of so much more than what they realize, you know. And so remember, it's just a moment. And then anytime I started feeling like I wanted to off myself, unalive myself, I would say that I have a life worth living. And it just goes like, if you say something long enough and as many like in enough, you will eventually start believing it. And so that's just what I would say is like, take time finding the right fit for you. That may not look like therapy. That may look like a support group. That may look like, you know, like meditation. That may look
Yeah.
like some type of religious practice. But there's something that's going to be right for you, that's going to help you process whatever it is that's going on. And take time to find that. Like, give yourself that chance, because once you find it, you're going to surprise yourself. Like, you're going to be very shocked at how much you can actually handle when you're given the right resources.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with those statements there. You know, I think learning how to cope with these very intense situations is key. And I just hope that, you know, if you've thought about any of those type of actions before, that you do seek out that help. And if, you know, you need to talk to someone, you need to talk to someone. Call your crisis line, call your suicide prevention hotline. There are people that want to help you. There are people that want to help you.
Yeah.
It won't be me.
Yeah, I was about to say, I would say slide into our DMs, talk to us, and tell us how you're feeling, but we're not mental health professionals. So you can, but we're going to tell you to go find a mental health professional.
Yeah, and I know it sounds harsh when I was like, it won't be me. It won't be me on the phone. I will help direct you. I have no power. I have nothing. I have literally nothing to make it better. I know that there's people out there that are trained and want to help you and can help you. And I'd rather you talk to them than talk to me about it. But if you do need to talk and you just need someone to be like, hey, what are the resources, question mark,
Yeah.
we got you.
That's awesome. Good point. Reach out to us and ask us that.
Yeah.
We can help you find resources.
But,
Awesome. Well, I guess that's where we're wrapping up,
that's
huh?
that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
Wow.
Gabby, for sharing all of that. I tried to chime in and give some fruitful things from my point of view, but ultimately you were the star of the show today. And I definitely think that that was very fruitful. I really appreciate you for being vulnerable with us and sharing that with us, because I know that's going to be very difficult. And also, just like, I want to say, I appreciate you being respectful of those people. Like, you know, like when you were sharing their story, you know, obviously HIPAA requires you to be a certain point of like
Yeah.
respectful, but just like how you told their story and everything, it was very objective, and it was very much like, this is what they were saying. I think that was very, very well done.
Well, and I never want anyone to feel any type of way of being targeted or anything. So just like always trying to keep things at as minimal as we could possibly give it, especially with these like really intense stories, because I don't know where they are now. I don't,
Yeah.
I remember their names, but they probably don't even remember they talked to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where they deserve all the loving kindness in the world. And so if I can do that, but also share their story, I would love to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, guys, this is where we will wrap up. Like Gabby said, if you ever need help finding resources, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. As we continue to grow, we may not be able to respond to every message, but if we see it and we see the DM, we will definitely send you in the right direction.
If you do need anything, just like crisis lifeline, suicide hotline type deal, this is in the United States. So just mind that if you are listening out of the
Canada.
United States, that this might not be the best resource for you, but it is something to get you started. And I bet if you called them, they could get you to where you need to go. The suicide and crisis lifeline number is 988. 988. So please just don't hesitate to call them. They're open 24 hours.
Is 988?
Just 988.
Oh, just 988.
3 numbers.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome. All right. Yeah. I was expecting you to be like saying a full number, but no, it's just 988. Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah, and they have several different languages available. Primarily, it looks like English and Spanish, but I'm sure that they have multiple ways that they can get a translator on the phone for you as well.
Definitely.
If you do need that.
Well, awesome. Well, again, thank you, Gabby. And if you guys want to find us on social media, I'm at Sammed if you do. That's SAMMED if you do. No spaces, no funky characters. I am that on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I might be deactivating my Twitter. Who knows? Just because screw Elon Musk. But anyways, yeah. But and if you want to find the podcast, you can find it now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. We are at Enhance on Google, Spotify, and Apple, and then we are at Enhance Podcast on YouTube. And we will be adding a lot more platforms. We're almost at the end of our season 1. So in between our little break, between this month, it'll be starting at the end of November, and we will start back up in the spring. So probably end of February, beginning of April, somewhere in that time frame. And so between now and then, we will have several platforms that have been added. I've already started that process. We'll have a website, we'll have merch, we'll have all kinds of cool things. So please keep an eye out for that. Gabby and I will definitely be posting on our social media about it. So yeah, be ready for that. Gabby, link your social media, please, and do your personal social media.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have 2 Instagrams, one for the podcast, one is my personal. Gsabat1234 is my Enhance one. Gsabat97 is my Gabby one. And then if you also do want to follow me on TikTok, I am Gabby S80. Yeah. So yeah, come follow me.
Awesome.
Come hang out.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. New episodes every Saturday, bonus episodes 3rd Wednesday of every month. Bye.
Illy. Enhance your peace,
your joy,
and your existence.